So the first thing that we're going to do here is focus on the styling of the chat app. If you've already got some styles in mind and you've already maybe built styles for this, you can go ahead and skip this. The only important thing to remember is that when it comes to actually implementing the JavaScript, you'll need to choose your selectors based on your class names or your IDs or whatever that may be. So we'll be go ahead and doing this, basically from scratch, and we'll build up the way this looks. So I'm starting with a page called index.html, and I'm just going to go ahead and define a basic document and a head as well, and then we'll give this a title. Okay, so the title will just say chat, and let's go ahead and define the body. And within here, we'll go ahead and we'll create the markup, and then we'll just start to style things up. So I'm going to give this a wrapper with a class. So the whole wrapper is going to contain this chat, and that's just going to be chat. So we can target that within our CSS style sheet when we implement our style sheet. Now the first thing that we need is the ability for a user to enter their name. So this is just going to be an input field. It's just going to be a type of text. It's going to have a class of chat name, and we're going to enter a placeholder as well, just as an instruction to the user what they should enter. Okay, so the next item that we need is the actual message box itself. Now this is just going to be a div, and we're going to apply some sort of overflows on this just so we can get a real sort of chat looking window. And we'll just call this chat messages. So we'll give this a class of chat messages. The next thing is obviously the ability to enter actually something to chat about. So in this case, it's just going to be a text area, and we're going to go ahead and give this a placeholder as well. And that is just going to be type your message. Okay, so the last thing is just going to be a div, and this is going to contain a status. So we want to go ahead and create a div here. And this is going to be chat status. And inside of this, we'll go ahead and say status. And then here we'll put a span. And the reason we do this is because we only want to change what's in here. So we'll keep this as default as idle, like that. So that's all we need to do for the actual markup. So let's preview that. It doesn't look very nice at the moment, but we'll go ahead and rectify that by creating a style sheet and adding that to our page. So let's go ahead and save this inside a new folder called CSS, and we'll call this main.css. So we'll go ahead and link that in here. So we say link rel equals style sheet, and we supply where that is, and that's css/main.css. You can call this whatever you like, but this just implies you have a sort of global style sheet for your site. So let's go ahead and just crack on with actually starting to build this out. And the first thing I'm going to do is just apply a general font to the entire page and the text areas as well. So in this case, I'm going to say body, text area, and we may as well say input as well. And we're going to choose a font of 13 pixels, and we're using the font shorthand property here. This is going to be Trebuchet MS, and we'll provide a sans serif fallback there. And that's basically it for the actual font of the page. You can see that now we've got a nice font for each of these items, including the text area and the input. So that just makes it look a little bit pleasant, a little bit more pleasant. So the chat class itself, there's not really much we want to do here in terms of the container. We just want to give it a max width of 300 pixels. This can obviously be entirely up to you. By default, it will just stretch across the entire page. So what we've done by doing this is, if we just inspect this, rather than having this full length element, so we've got a div at a block level, we've now got this blue area here, which is a maximum of 300 pixels. But of course, this can completely change depending on your requirements, so feel free to play around with it. Now what we also want to do is apply a border to the messages, text area and name sections or classes, just to sort of frame these and contain them. So we have chat messages, chat text area. I don't know if I gave that a class. No, I didn't. Chat text area. And we could, of course, target this with text area, but we want to be a little bit more specific and make this a little bit more modular. So chat text area and chat name. So we want this to be or we want this to have a border of 1 pixel solid and a sort of grey colour. So again, using the border shorthand property, and we want this to be like BBB. In fact, we don't need to do this with the text area. We can maybe target this just a little bit separate. Oh no, we can. So let's say chat text area like that. So now you'll see that that looks like this. So we've now got borders around each of these. So around chat messages, we've got a border. It doesn't look great at the moment because there's no height. Around chat name, we've got a border as well. But again, this is only around the actual element. So we need to, increase the size of these. This will be a width of 100. And also the text area as well. The status we just leave down there as normal. Okay, so what we're now going to do is just build out the chat messages section, because this is the sort of most important part. So the message area will be the container where all of the messages will appear. We're going to give this a width of 100%. Remember, that's relative to the container it's in, which is a maximum of 300. We're going to give this a height of 300. So let's just take a look at how that looks. Chat messages, there we go. So that looks like this. Let's just pull this down a little bit. So we've now got this, and we can sort of resize this input field here in this text area just to sort of fit this kind of design. So we now have got a sort of baseline to work with. Now the chat messages is also going to have an overflow on it of a scroll, because if, say, you've got 200 messages in the chat area, a user might want to go down and scroll and view more. So we're going to say we want an overflow on the y-axis, and we want that to scroll. So that basically just means if there's too much content in this area, it's going to overflow into, and it's going to give the user a scroll bar. And we'll also want a padding of 10 pixels on here. So let's just go ahead and test this. So inside of chat messages, I'm just going to go ahead and just type in hello and a break just to literally test this out. And we'll just go ahead and copy and paste this down a few times. Okay, so that should give us sufficient scrolling, so you can now see that we've got a sort of scrolling area here, and that lets us, go back and view previous messages. The latest messages will always be at the top. So now that we've got that, let's just undo all of that mess and go ahead and continue styling. So we're going to style now. We can get rid of this class as well. We can go ahead and style the other two elements, which is the area that the user enters their name and the area that they enter their message in. So that is chat message and chat name. We'll focus on the chat name for now. So the chat name, remember, is this input element up here. So what do we want? Well, we want this to be 100% as well. So that basically looks like this. So it now reaches almost 100%, but because of the padding on this element, that's not pushed out quite far enough. So when we go ahead and apply the padding to the chat name, that will then push that out a further 20 pixels, because we've got, remember, left and right padding, which adds up to 20. So we've now got something that looks a little bit nicer, and we'll go ahead and modify these borders in just a moment. We also then want to go ahead and focus on the chat text area. So with the chat text area, we want to go ahead and do pretty much exactly the same. We want to give this a width of 100% and padding of 10 pixels. So now you can see that again just fills this section quite nicely. But let's go ahead and just get rid of these gaps here and make another couple of tweaks. So under chat name, we want to go ahead and we want to set the border bottom to 0, and that will just basically get rid of the border. And we're also going to set a margin of 0, so we won't get this tiny gap just here. So that just sort of nicely lines up with it then. So we've just got a line there, and that's it. So that's all nicely lined up. Let's do the same for the text area as well. It's pretty much the same, just the opposite. So we have a margin of 0, and we also have then a border top of 0. So that then does more or less the same thing, like this. So it just sort of nicely lines everything up. What we're also going to go ahead and do is we're going to set a max width on the text area. And the reason for this is that at the moment I can take this little corner and just drag this over here like that. We can disable that, but what I want to do is allow it to be pulled down but not across, because it doesn't seem, necessary for it to be pulled across this way. So I'm going to go ahead and set a max width on this of 100%. Let's change that. And what that will do is that will not allow me to drag it out, but will allow me to drag it downwards, which is fine. You know, we want our users to be able to enter more message if they want. So that's quite useful. Let's also go ahead and just color the chat status. So we'll put that as maybe, I don't know, some BBB or something like that. Maybe just to match the borders. And that's pretty much it. So that's a sort of grayed out now. Another thing that we want to do is just get rid of this blue focus line here for this element and this element. So we can go ahead and change that. So let's go ahead and say chat text area and chat name, and we basically just say outline none. There we go. So we now have a nice looking, or a nice enough looking chat area. But what about the actual messages inside of it? Well, let's go ahead and add some example content, because what's eventually going to happen is JavaScript's going to come in and it's going to loop through the messages that are returned back from Node.js, from the MongoDB database, and it's going to go ahead and actually, you know, add markup to this area. And these are going to be divs with a class of chat message, and inside of here we're going to go basically have a name and a message. So Alex, hello there, and we'll just duplicate this down and say Billy, hello. And yeah, that should do for now. So there we go. All we want to do here, it's a very, very, very minor change, is under here, let's just say chat message margin bottom, I don't know, 20 pixels or something like that. 10 might be more appropriate. And there we go. So that just spaces things out a little bit. So that's all we want to do. But it's good to bear in mind that we will have this markup in here at some point. So you can go ahead and style that however you feel or however you wish. So at the moment that's going to be empty. And we have finished the design for our chat interface. So next up is actually going ahead and setting up our Node.js server, and also looking at a little bit about MongoDB, just so we can get to grips with how data is stored and how we're going to pull it back.